Evacuation procedure. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You are required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Item 1.1, apologies for leaves of absence.
We have Councillor Tammy Greenhouse absent this evening. We have Councillor Evans, Duffy and Peterson on Zoom.
Move apologies, Mr.
And you need to move.
Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor McDonald. All in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous, thank you. Item 1.2, the council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you will agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administration purposes. I'll move on to item 1.3, which is the opening prayer, and we welcome Pastor Pat Farrelly from the Ever Upward
Apostolic Church.
Thank you, and ask him to lead us in the opening prayer.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to thank all the councillors and all the people in their office for representing Orange and representing constituents of Orange. Father, I just come before you tonight and I just thank you, Lord Jesus, for all those, Lord, in attendance here and via the internet, Lord. I want to thank you, Lord, for the authority, Lord, that has been invested in them by the people of Orange. And, Lord, I know that, Father, under your authority, Lord, that you give men authority to rule over the affairs of the city of Orange. And I want to thank you, Lord, tonight for every individual here. Lord, every person that, Lord, is committed to, Father, doing their part for the city of Orange. I just pray, Lord, for the meeting tonight, Lord, that all the discussion, all the, Father, the things that are brought forward, Lord, would be favourable, Lord, in your sight. And I pray, Lord, for people to, Lord, just, Father, be moved by your Spirit to, Father, conduct their answers and their words, Lord, according to your will, that we might see Orange, Lord, as a city that's blessed. And I thank you, Lord, for this city. I thank you, Lord, that, Father, it is the colour city, Lord, Father, because of all the seasons that you've placed here and all the people that you've placed here, Lord. I want to thank you, Lord, for it. I pray your blessing on this meeting tonight, Lord, and your blessing on those in attendance. And I ask it all in Jesus' name.
I'll move on to item 1.3, which is acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to both elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. I'll move on to item 1.4, which is, does any councillor wish to declare an conflict of interest in any other matter for consideration at this council meeting? I'll be first. I'll be declaring an interest in item 5.5, as I am a board member of Orange 360.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest that's non-procuring in regards to item number 2.1, Future City Assistance Fund, which appears on page 5 of our papers. An exhibition for 28 days. My interest in that matter is that I know the applicant personally.
Thanks, Councillor Miletto.
Oh, sorry, and also item 5.6, depending on how that is the playground matter, depending on how the conversation goes, I may be declaring a conflict of interest there, as I'm a member. Wait till see how it goes. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Miletto. Councillor Kinghorn.
I've got 3. So item 6.2, I declare a pecuniary interest in that one because my husband's business does regular work for health infrastructure. I have a business in the CBD, so that one. Greg also does geotechnical work site at Rossi Drive.
Thanks.
That last one was item
0.5. Thanks, Councillor Kinghorn. Councillor Powell.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to also declare a conflict of interest in the 5.5 council meeting was a service contract with Orange 360. I am also a board member of Orange 360.
Thanks, Councillor Power. I'll just remind all councillors when they're speaking, just make sure we speak into the microphone so it's loud and clear for our guests on the air. Councillor Evans.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary significant interest in 5.5 as I'm a general member, or my business is a general member of Orange 360. Thank you.
Thank you. No other? We've got a few tonight.
I'd like to declare. I'd like to declare interest in the closed meeting agenda item, as I'm a employee of New South Wales Health, and I will not participate and leave the room for that debate.
Thanks, Councillor Peterson. Any others? I'll move on. The council meeting now adjourns for the conduct of the public forum. We have one speaker tonight, and that's Mr. Simon Price. Mr. Price, could you come to the microphone? I'll just introduce the councillors. We've got Councillor Mallard, Councillor Power, who's the Deputy Mayor, Councillor McDonald, Councillor Whitten, Councillor Floyd, Councillor Kinghorn, Councillor Miletto. We've got Councillor Evans, Duffy and Peterson on the air tonight. So it's all yours.
Oh, thank you very much,
Mr. Price.
Mayor and all councillors. With the pastor, I'd like to congratulate you all for being here every second Tuesday and running the council for us. And it's great to have so many new faces here. Look, I'm just here. It's a bit of a selfish thing. There's a sewerage upgrade being done between the creek at the back of my place, which will be on Pines Lane, going up and then working its way out to Lake Canobolas. Now, can I just say I think that's a great project, and I'm just looking at Orange expanding and then to actually have some fantastic facilities out at Lake Canobolas, and that area would be good. But my concerns are just with regard to the local location of it. Number one, I've got a building that was called of significant local heritage listing in 2011 when a Orange Heritage Inventory was done, and that's not mentioned in the report or the outline of the draft outline that was there, and I'd like it added into it, because I can't say for sure, but Pines Lane, along which the sewerage line will go, is only a narrow corridor, and to have a major sewerage line going out to the thing from there, I'm worried that it's adjacent to the boundary, and my main trouble with being adjacent to the boundary, where it looks like some surveying posts have been put in. I've got a Knoll building. It's being listed as some heritage value, and it's within 30 centimetres of the boundary line, and it goes a bit closer than that. So I'm thinking that if big sewerage tractors come down and then put in pipes and that sort of thing there, a building that was on bluestone building and was made of the type of concrete that's in it was the old limestone thing. You can put your finger in, it'll come down. I'm worried about the building be damaged by any major structural work. So one of the things I'd ask is that the line of the pipe could be take into consideration the building, which doesn't seem to have made it into the heritage thing. Now, a couple of years ago, we got permission from council and had to submit a heritage thing there, and we've done up that building, and it's now an Airbnb facility, which is used in April. I think we've only got a couple of spare nights. So not am I worried about damage to the building, I'm also worried about how we can monitor people coming into Orange and have a successful stay here when the information that's given out says they'll give us 2 weeks of construction in the vicinity of the building. And as we know, we're still in Food Week, and now I'm getting bookings for Food Week this time next year and throughout the year. So I would like to be able to tell guests that if I knew a period of time when the sewerage was being put in past my place, then I would just have a 2 or 3 week period when I wouldn't take any bookings, but I don't have that availability. I don't have that capacity if I'm only given 2 weeks notice of it. I understand rain, that sort of thing is there, but I would think that where we are placed, we're near Blackman's Swamp Creek, we'll be right at the beginning of it, that I should be able to get some pretty firm ideas of when the that construction would take place. Okay, so it's the 2 things. The heritage building, which is part of Old Bluestone, very susceptible to any earth movement and construction, and then secondly, having the Airbnb property there, can I have more than 2 weeks' notice or a definite timeline for it? Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors.
Thanks, Mr Price, for that. Okay, council. Ladies and gentlemen, the council meeting resumes. There are no mayoral minutes. I'll move on to item 3, which is 3.1, minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Orange City Council held on the 15th of March.
Move the minutes.
Move Councillor Whitten, seconded Councillor Mallard. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour, say aye or put your hand. Yep. Against? Carried. Item 3.2 is the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held by Council on the 25th of March 2022. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour, say aye or raise your hand. Against? Carried. The council meeting now will adjourn for the conduct of the policy committees. The first one will be Councillor Whitten to chair the Planning and Development Committee. I'll hand it over to you, Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to open the Planning and Development Committee meeting 5th of April 2022, with the time being 6:44. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any manner listed for consideration at this meeting? None. Move on to item...
Sorry, Mr Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Evans.
I'd like to declare an interest in item 2.2 as I've got a business in the CBD. Thank you.
So you'll be leaving that you won't be taking part in
leaving the chamber and not voting, Mr Chair.
Councillor Duffy's got his hand up.
Councillor Duffy, got your hand up?
I don't think so. I think he was adjusting his lamp.
All right.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Just as previously stated, item 2.2, because I have a CBD-based business, and item 2.5.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
We'll move on to item 2.1, items approved under delegated authority of council.
I'll move that, Mr Chair.
Been moved by Councillor Hamling. Seconder.
Councillor Mallard.
Councillor Mallard. Any discussion on this matter? Being no discussion, I'll put the motion. Show of hands, please. All in favour? Against? Councillor Duffy, you for or against? Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry, Councillor, I didn't see your hand. Councillors, for those who are on Zoom.
No, I seem to be a few seconds behind in the thing.
So it's the same when you're in the chat. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Left yourself open. Councillors who are on Zoom, if I don't see you, if you could just feel free to interject verbally, please. If I don't see your hand. So I've already put the motion, it was carried. Item 2.2, where Councillor Evans is leaving, have I got it right? 2.2.
And Councillor Kinghorn.
We'll wait for Councillor Kinghorn to leave, and we'll wait for Councillor Evans to be
I'm going to just turn my video off. Or you're going to kick me out. How's it going to work?
I think staff have a really magic way of putting you into a little room. I think.
Wait for that.
Done.
In a room.
A room. All good?
Councillor Peterson is in. Councillor Evans in the room.
Oh, he's already there.
Ready to go?
Evans should be in a small room. Councillor Peterson.
There he is.
Got him.
Of technology.
Thank you.
Alrighty, item 2.2, information report, employment zone reforms. There's a recommendation on page 12. Do I have a mover? Motion. And do I have a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Councillor Hamling, Councillor Milletta, you have a question?
Yeah, probably my question through you, Mr. Chair, to the CEO. I'm just wondering, with these changes, will that impact on rates in the CBD moving forward?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not necessarily, Mr. Chair, not necessarily. I haven't quite thought that through, though. I'm in the planning mode at the moment. Would another director like to comment?
I'm referring to rates, business rates, things like that.
Yeah.
Happy to move it, Mr. Mayor.
Not necessarily. Not unless council wants it to, I think is a better answer. We would need to bring that to you separately, all to business rates.
I think you've answered the question, but maybe you need to take it on notice and come back if that's okay.
I can.
Rogers, do you have anything to add to that? CEO's
The question is that with the rezoning that's going to take place, will business and commercial rates be affected? And if so, to what extent?
Okay. I'll have a go at that one, Mr. Chair, through you. I guess the base of the rating is on the valuation of the land, and this is not proposing to change that in itself. It's indeed collapsing the commercial and industrial zones as proposed could potentially increase the value of the land, but we're not going there just with this report. It's about saying keeping the controls in a similar manner to what they are now through the provision of floor space ratio controls as in the second part of the motion there. So that in itself should keep it closer to the status quo as it is at the moment.
I'm assuming
land use.
Thank you. I'm assuming though that people would be caught up in the rezoning who may not wish to. If that was the case, I understand that why the rezoning taking place, but there would be people who would be caught up in the rezoning who wouldn't be expecting. It may impact on their rates into the future. So people don't get a say. What I'm trying to say is people won't get a say is whether their business is incorporated or included in their catchment.
Or change the use.
Yes.
But it's not a rezoning, it's a retitling of the zone that they're in. Potential to have different uses in that area. But our proposal is to put a submission in to keep it closer to what we have at the moment.
Just on the same thing, what would be the worst impact? An impact.
Okay. If we collapse zones, there could be an area of sort of a smaller commercial use, like a neighbourhood shop. If there was consolidation of blocks around them, you could have larger supermarkets trying to go on the around town, fringes of town, or say, for example, the bulky goods area of the Harvey Norman type gateway development. That is generally, it is for the larger items, not retail. So we keep the retail nice and close into the CBD, where so people come into those shops, and whilst they're here, they then go and buy a tie and a suit and whatever it is elsewhere in the CBD. If you allow retail in the other areas, it then spreads the shopping market all over the place. So that could potentially increase the impacts on the commercial cores. So that's what we try and protect over the years, for many years.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a point of clarification?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
lose all my power.
I've got a bad foot. I can't keep going down and going up.
Councillor Maletta, sorry.
Thank you,
your
Mr.
question.
Chair. One of the examples were McLaughlin Street, for argument's sake, on the northern end where there's some development going on. So if we look at that area there, you've got development on one side of the road, but residential on the other. Same area. How would that be impacted?
You with any zone, you'll always have the potential conflict between the zones, and that's your most sensitive place when you've got two very different zones across from each other. And that zone down there is more the business support zones. There is some industrial zoning around the hardware shop and carpet area there, but it's sort of positioned more so. We've got some lighter industrial stuff fronting those residential areas there.
I understand that part. I guess what I'm getting at is, will the people who live across the road of McLaughlin Street expecting to be impacted by any increases in rates because of the rezoning?
Oh, okay. So across the road. I wouldn't be expecting with that. The bigger risk is that if there was a non-industrial use went into, say, that example, the retail traffic would be higher and they would have adverse impacts there, but not in terms of in relation to the valuation from the adjoining zone. I couldn't see that changing. But that's a market-driven thing, but the valuation for the industrial land opposite, if we go as proposed, it in itself should remain the same.
My understanding is that there's also a mechanism within council, though, if that was to occur, that the landowner there could write to council and have that reviewed. Is that correct?
Could you mention that again? Sorry, councillor. I just need to make sure I fully understood that question.
For argument's sake, it's a bit like, rezoning where you have residential land or rural residential. And I think this issue was raised before by myself, where sometimes the price of the land or value of the land increases. And if the people object to the increase for some reason, is there a port of call where they can go to dispute the increase in the value of the land? Because my concern here is, whilst I agree recommendation, is that if the land suddenly becomes more valuable around that area, how is it going to impact on people in residential land? Because their land's value is going to increase, I would imagine. So what is their recourse, I guess, if that was to occur?
That is probably a detailed question that should be taken on notice, because it comes up each time the rates notices go out in terms of the valuation. I do recall your previous questions now, Councillor Maletta. And it relates to what is the process with the Valuer-General's appeals process. So I think if we take that on notice and have a note go out to the councillors about that,
thank you,
be more appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Maletta. Mr. Hodges, just in reading the recommendation in detail, like, it's the New South Wales Planning Department that have advised that they intend to do these actions, and we're saying this will what the impact of their actions will be. We're not actually approving them, but we're not actually refusing them. Acknowledging the fact that if they do these things, then this is the impact.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. They're just asking for feedback on what we think. So on the basis of
we're
that,
not supporting it.
Well,
So
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Councillor. Sorry,
Mr. Chairman.
Just one moment, Councillor Duffy. I had Mr. Hodges still answering your question.
I was just saying
Mr.
we're not
Chairman.
necessarily saying we're against it. We're just saying if you do this, we need to have these protections in place for our zones that we've long looked after.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Mr. Chairman.
You're right to go, Councillor Duffy.
He's on a satellite. He's getting.
Yeah.
Right to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're on.
Text him. No, it's okay. I'll text him.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a problem with the rating structure there. Each individual rating landowner can write directly to the Governor General's place and say, hey, I want to review. But what I do have a problem with is, and I think the staff have got it right this time. It's not very often I praise the staff on this type of stuff. But one of the things is that when the state government are sort of bullying us to say, hey, you've got to do this, when it's going to affect our roads or whatever we're going to do, and those type of things there. So I'm with the staff on this one here. Let's write to the State Minister for Planning and all these things here and say, hey, we want to run our town. We don't want you to run it. We want to know where all these type of goods can be sold in our town. We don't want bulky goods sitting up in the middle of Peasley Street or whatever street or Dalton Street or Byng Street. I think it's something we should back the staff 100% on.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any further speakers for or against? No questions? Put the motion, show of hands, please. All those in favour? It's unanimous. I believe that we're moving on to 2.3 and some councillors are coming back. I'll wait for them to come back.
One back.
Thank you, councillors. Item 2.3, development application DA 5212021, one in brackets 370 Escort Way, recommendation on page 39.
Happy to move it, Mr. Chair.
Mover in Councillor Miletto and a seconder in Councillor. So that's why I need to sit up there so I can see the name tags. Sorry, Councillor Mallow. Any discussion on this item?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a question regarding, I think this is great. I'm happy to support it. It's just concerned about pedestrian safety around Escort Way. That road going to have. I mean, it's bad enough at the moment with families with young kids. There's no footpaths. The edges of the road are really got seniors. We're wanting to encourage mobility.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think this development application is going to be a
He's in delay. We've got a councillor speaking at the moment, Councillor Duffy. Sorry, you're on a. I've got the dump button here, mate.
A question regarding safety for the residents of that will be there. What's its near future looking like in terms of footpath infrastructure and?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Duffy, we've got a question to the Director.
Take away the look of the
Yeah, thank you for the question. We do have some, like we have an underpass of the Northern Distributor Road a bit further up off is it Valencia and George Wiley Place, off the ends there, that can be accessed without having to cross a road from that proposed development, but they do have to go west and follow all the roads around to get to there.
On those either get to that underpass.
No, it's a walkway as such, so it's a grassed verge, yeah. So it's a grass footpath. It's not a concrete footpath. You're correct.
Yeah, but in order to get from this place round onto that underpass,
yeah,
they'd have to go on the road, or on the
grass verge.
Grass verge.
Yeah.
So if you're an elderly person and you've got a four-wheelie walker,
yep.
Is there any plans in place to put like a refuge across way at some point? where the NDR joins Escort?
Not at this point, but we are in negotiation with Transport for New South Wales, and it's part of that handover with the Northern Distributor Road, that an upgrade to that intersection between the Northern Distributor Road, Escort Way and Ploughman's Lane is installed, and whether that be lights or a roundabout and the associated infrastructure that would come with that. Yeah. We're not ordinarily obliged to put in footpaths just because of where something's being installed.
Thank you, Mr. Greenham. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a great development. It will take away from the awful look of something like Starlab 13 of the Domestic Violence Centre, and I think it'd be great. I think there's also access to the parkland behind there where people can go for a walk and a stroll through there. I think it's a step in the right direction. I've been looking for something to happen there for ages. There's a couple more spots that need filling in, and I hope the staff are working on that too.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Do we have any further speakers for or against? Questions? None. Councillor Mallard.
I just want to speak in favour of the motion and just say, yeah, I think it's a really great little project. I think this sort of self-contained living is really important for seniors, and we're going to need a lot more of it with the ageing population around town. But yeah, I think it looks like a great provision for people to live independently, but then to have support there as well.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. All right, Councillor Milletta.
Just a brief comment, Mr. Chair. I think what this development does indicate is that the allays the concerns that some people may have had about development going around the Domestic Violence Centre. Probably 7 or 8 blocks there for sale, and they were snapped up pretty quickly, and it's great to see that development such as this taking place in that area and quashes that stigma which some people may have had around that area. So I think this is great.
Thank you, Councillor Milletta. That closes the debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, show of hands. Against? Yes, thank you, councillors. Item 2.4, Part 5 Environmental Assessment, Lake Canobolas Water and Sewer Articulation Project. The recommendation is on page 100. Do I have a mover? Councillor Duffy, I see you got your hand up.
I'll second it.
Moving the motion?
I'm happy to second it.
Yeah, well, how about I get a mover in the chamber? That way
I'll move it.
Okay.
I'll move.
Councillor Floyd has moved it and Councillor Milletta has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on this item?
I'll second the motion, yeah.
Councillor Duffy.
I'm supportive of it in the next one.
Councillor Hamling, you have a question?
Probably just a quick question about what Mr. Price was talking about.
So I think the director is that there's probably a number of several concerns in the conditions that whilst they're fully supportive of the construction, they're concerned about impact of their living.
Might assist the council through you, Mr. Chair. You could add a couple more points on to the approval if you would like to consider. One would be highlighting to our Technical Services Division, who are the applicant or the proponents, to have a consultation or an access plan for the residents out there. So it's not just in relation to Mr. Price, but for all of them along there to maintain their access during construction where necessary. Not dissimilar to where they do on normal projects, so I'm sure they would do that anyway. So that would address access and business matters raised. In terms of the heritage matters, we could also ask for a dilapidation report on the Bluestone Cottage. I just don't have the review of environmental factors because sitting behind this report, there's quite a large assessment document, which is what was reviewed by our staff, and to see it did consider heritage. I just can't recall off the top of my hand whether it went to that particular cottage, but given it's 300 mils away, it would be appropriate to ask for a dilapidation report on that prior to the commencement of works around it.
I'm happy to have those conditions added as long as the mover and the seconder are happy.
Yeah, I'll move that as well.
So no one needs to have anything read out. They understand what those additional conditions are. Sorry, councillors on Zoom. Everyone's good with that? All right. If there's no further discussion or questions, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? I believe that brings us to a close.
2.5, Mr. Chair.
2.5 ever. How come I haven't got a 2.5?
Councillor Kinghorn's declaring an interest in this one as well.
2.5.
Page 121.
Over your page.
There you go. It's on that bit. 2.5 development application. Oh, sorry. John. Development application DA 3722201, Rossi Drive, Clifton Grove. Recommendations on 1, 2, 3. Have a mover?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor. Any discussion on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I think this is a really sensible recommendation based on the fact that the intent of the building is obviously secondary dwelling on a property in a semi-rural setting type of thing. So whilst it fell under a different category, which should allow it under, perhaps you could help me here, Mr. CEO, I don't think what the section was. I did read it with regards to affordable housing, not affordable housing, something else.
There's a SEP. Housing SEP is probably what you think of, yes.
So I guess for an explanation, maybe you can provide some feedback as to why this dwelling was approved, or a recommendation was made to approve it where it probably normally wouldn't have been the case.
I'll ask Mr. Hodges to do that. There's some real logic here. You're correct.
Sensible logic, I'd like to.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Chair. Under the housing SEP, so bottom line with Clifton Grove is a dual occupancy is prohibited. And so we've got to balance it off with this being a secondary dwelling. Secondary dwellings are defined under the State Environmental Planning Policy, so the SEP for housing. But what we've looked at here is saying, look, it's in the middle of the block, tucked in behind their house next to another shed. And so that's where we looked at and said, environmentally, does it significantly change the character of the area by having this building here? It seems a reasonable control, as in to depart from the 60 square metres. When you look at other provisions, other zones in the council area allow they go 60 square metres or up to 50% of the existing house. This is well below the 50%, but it's technically the zone that it's in only has the gauge of this 60 square metres. So we're saying, look, that's unreasonable, so it doesn't impact. So we've recommended approval.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges.
Thank you.
Righty. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, show of hands. Against? Carried. And I will close the planning committee at 7:09 and invite Councillor Evans to conduct the infrastructure committee.
Thank you, Councillor Whitman.
Can we just hang on to Councillor Evans? We're just going to bring Councillor Kinghorn back in. Thanks, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to open the Infrastructure Policy Committee for the 5th of April, time being 7:10. Any councillor wish to declare a pecuniary or any sort of interest in the items on the agenda this evening? I can't see anybody.
No, there's no one.
Beautiful, thank you. I'll move on to item 2.1, confirmations of the minutes from the City of Orange Traffic Committee. Could I get a mover, please?
I'll move the minutes.
I'd like to move an amendment to the minutes, if that's okay, please.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you. My amendment is in relation to item 3.10, It refers to the traffic and parking at the intersection of Byng Street and Hamer Street. The reason for what I'm asking for is that this matter be deferred to the next council meeting. The reason being that somebody approached me who wanted to speak at tonight's meeting, and the original, when they approached council, they were advised that they weren't able to speak. And then the following day, they were contacted again saying there was a misunderstanding and that they could speak. During that time, the person who wanted to speak, Mr. Barker, had made other arrangements to conduct business elsewhere. He was intending on speaking. I did chair this meeting, and I would agree that some of the concerns raised in his letter to the committee probably weren't all addressed. And I believe it would only be a matter of procedure fairness that he be given the opportunity to speak to council, and because he was going to contact, he did ask if that was approved, that he was going to contact Mr. Tristo next week and just sort out some of these issues which, he wanted to speak about tonight. So I'd be asking that everything else be approved except item 3.10, which be held over to the next meeting to allow those discussions to occur. So that'd be my amendment.
I'm happy to let that be the motion, Mr.
Works well. We've got a second.
I'll second that.
Beautiful. All in favour?
Can I just make a comment with regards to those items, Mr. Chair, in regards to item 3.9, and that this will make Councillor Duffy happy. It's the traffic at up at Anson Street in the vicinity of James Sheen Catholic High School, and I'm referring to the area between Tynan Street and the bridge there, where the committee agreed to put a no stopping zone on the eastern side of the roadway as you go over the bridge between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. and in the afternoon between 2:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. As councillors would be aware, travelling that section of roadway of a morning and afternoon is very challenging, and it becomes a bottleneck. The traffic committee agreed that something needed to be done there and done reasonably quickly, and I think that this is an excellent outcome for motorists and the people using the high school up there. So I just wanted to make mention that I think this is a really positive thing for the flow of traffic up around that area.
Can I just ask a question about that? At 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. is different to the other school zone times. It's usually 4 p.m. the cut-off. Is this deliberately different? I just don't want to confuse people.
Mr. Theakston. Sorry, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment soon?
Yep, I will have an answer to Councillor Kinghorn's question, and then you go, Councillor Duffy.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just asking Mr. Theakston if he'd approach the microphone and clarify whether 4:30 is intended.
Thank you.
It is intended the typical school zones time, so there may be a typo in that actual resolution. So normal school times, school zone times.
I'm not sure, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure whether there was some discussion at the meeting because the impact of Anson Street Special School, whether that was may have been the reason for the extended time. I'm not certain, but I think there was a discussion around that because there was two schools in the immediate vicinity, and because of the special needs of some of the students at Anson Street. Leaving later was part of the reason.
Is that the standard school zone time for there anyway? There, that's not the answer.
I think you're correct, Councillor Mileto. There's discussion to extend it a little bit further for that reason.
So just to clarify, Mr. Chair,
it is 4:30 along there.
As printed, 4:30 is the correct intention.
That's correct. Thank you. Is there any other discussion on these items?
Evans, just 2 seconds. I think Councillor Duffy's got something to say.
Yep, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make comment about that. That's an issue that's been up there for years, actually, because what the traffic does is block the traffic. The buses and other service vehicles cannot pass on the left-hand side. But I'd also like to bring into the fact is that I hope the traffic committee's been looking at the one down at the Byng Street which was supposed to be done with that DA down there, Byng Street and Clinton Street, and at Sturgeon Oval, Brendan Sturgeon Oval, where the people park either side. That's one down. We've got another 2 to go.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Are there any other speakers on these items?
I just want to make comment on that same issue. When will be, has the residents been notified? When's all that taking place? When's the time going to be happening? Because school's already obviously started.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've already notified the residents.
Fantastic. So do we wait for what happens next?
I've asked for any comment.
Yep.
And haven't heard anything. It's been out there for 2 weeks now.
Thank you, Mr. Theakstone. Any other discussion from the chamber? Very good. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Beautiful. Thanking you. Where's the next one? Item 3.1 on page 77. Recommendation is to acknowledge the information provided in the current works report. Can I have a mover, please?
Move it.
And a seconder?
Second it.
Councillor Floyd.
Any discussion of this item? I'd just like to talk about, what is it, I think it's still in 3.1, the Ophir Road upgrade. I think it's a great bit of upgrade. There's a fair few residents out there between Currier Road and out towards Ophir and Clifton Grove, and I'd like to thank the state government for their support with the funding with this project. I think it's come along very well. Thank you. Any other discussion on these items? Very good. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Very good. I think that's all the business. I'll conclude the meeting at 7:18 and pass to Councillor Duffy for the Finance Policy Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Evans. I'll ask the Mayor to do finance.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Just give me 2 seconds while I go onto that sheet. There's only one item, isn't there? Okay, correct. I'll open the Finance Policy Committee at 7:19, and no council's got a declaration of any interest or pecuniary interest. We asked that at the start. That's a no.
Yeah, I think you were
sorry, Councillor Miletto has. Sorry, Councillor Miletto.
Item 2.1. Yeah. Future City Fund Report.
I'll wait for Councillor Miletto to leave the room. Me. I'll wait till he leaves first. So I'll move on to item 2.1. I've got a mover in Councillor Whitten, a seconder by Councillor Mallard. Any discussion on the Future City Assistance Fund?
I'll speak to it, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Evans.
Yeah, I think it's a great project, and it's good to see other businesses taking this up. I think we've seen it rolled out once or twice now through the CBD, and it really does liven up that precinct and draws people into town. I'd like to see more businesses come forward to take it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Evans. Any other speakers? Councillor Powell.
Oh, yes, just in relation to this, the funding and everything else, is to get the information out as what Councillor Evans just mentioned. Is there a promoting of this information in relation to encouraging other shop owners to opportunities to apply?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've got Mr. Redmond, the architect of the scheme, here tonight.
Name somebody.
Chair, we have done promotions of it, and we'll do it again for this one. It's been a bit slow, to be frank. We'd hoped for a better take-up than we've had. One of the things we've come across is the lack of trades available to do the work has been part of the problem, but yeah, we'll keep pumping away at it.
Okay, no other speakers. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Against? Unanimous. I'll close the Finance Committee meeting at 7:20 And I will move on. There being no other policy matters, the council meeting will resume. I'll move on to notice of motion and notice of rescission motion. Item 4.1 is a motion by Councillor Whitten, Australian Defence Force Strategic Sovereign Partner.
Happy to second the motion.
Happy to move
Councillor
the motion,
Maletta.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Whitten, would you like to speak for it?
Well, I won't stand up. Thank you, Mr Mayor. The motion before you tonight, councillors, is to form a working party of community businesses and members, along with the oversight of council, if council choose to become involved. The intention of the motion is to make the ADF or the Department of Defence aware that we as a community would like to begin discussions with them to let them know about our city assets that we may have and wish to put into the working party, things like rail infrastructure, what type of infrastructure we have in the city, what type of land we have available from an industrial point of view, and what type of assets we have in the community from I suppose from manufacturing and all of the ancillary companies that we have in Orange that may do things with mining and those things. So the Defence at the moment has a program called the DISP program for procurement. They are going out now to engage with, traditionally they would engage with what we call primes, which are those organisations like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Thales, all of the traditional military organisations that build the things that they need. But a few years ago, the Australian government brought out a sovereignty program for procurement, where now Defence are now having to procure and build their products within Australia. It is something that they're promoting now. So they're looking to small and medium organisations to work with and to procure from. I think it's probably timely that if it's a mind of council and the will of council, that we form a working party to engage with Defence to let them know our interest, and with the primes. There is a program that I was invited to listen to in Newcastle. They call theirs the Hunter Defence Program, and it's made up of a cooperative of the Chamber and all of their organisations throughout the Hunter region to engage them and to create pathways from the SME environment into Defence, and the other way around as well. So Defence know what types of skill bases are in that area. And sure, they have a head start. They have Williamtown Air Base and they have Singleton Ground Force Base. But certainly they are looking to see what the rest of Australia has to offer as well. So we may get nothing from it. There may be no interest, but at least we're being proactive, because the outcome will be economy for our community and jobs if there was any interest.
Thanks, Councillor Whitten. No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Raise your hand in favour. Against? Unanimous. I'll move on to item 5.2, which is the National General... Oh, sorry. I'll move on to general reports. Item 5.1, which is recommendations and resolutions from the policy committees.
Move the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Whitten. Seconder, Councillor McDonald. Any speakers? No speakers. I'll put the motion. Raise your hand. Against? Carried. Now we'll move on to item 5.2, which is the National General Assembly.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the recommendation and nominate myself and Councillor Duffy to attend National General Assembly.
I'd like to second the...
How many people like...
Through Mr Chair, the limit is by the council budget. So in this case, early in the term, you could all go. That's what you chose to do.
Is there any...
It'll just limit what you can do later in the year.
Is there any... obligations for myself to go?
Not necessarily, no.
Righto, beauty.
Councillor Whitten and Councillor
Duffy and Councillor McDonald. And you can do virtual.
Councillor Green too.
Councillor Greenhouse, Councillor Mallard.
Sorry, I've got Councillor Whitten, Councillor Duffy, Councillor McDonald, Councillor Greenhouse, Councillor Miletto. Did you?
No. So there was
Four so
Councillor
far.
Greenhouse.
Mallard, sorry, yeah. I've got 5.
No.
Any councillors on Zoom like to attend this conference on the 19th of June in Canberra? Thank you. Councillor Duffy, you're one of the 5.
There's also the chance to do it by virtual. I see the virtual delegate.
That's correct, which is $300 cheaper.
Anyway.
Councillor Power. Okay.
Don't be in an
Mr.
auction,
Mayor, I'll
Councillor.
speak to the motion if there's no. Yeah, look, it's very important. It's great representation. You have all of the local government representations from all over Australia there in Canberra. You get the opportunity to speak with the federal representatives, Minister for Local Government, generally the Deputy Prime Minister will attend. There are other functional dinners where you will meet ministerial staff and their representatives who put forward cases to those representatives. And in years gone by, this will only be my second one that I've attended, but I do know in years gone by that a lot of the funding that we got out of the federal infrastructure or the indoor aquatic centre, the NDR were done during those times in Canberra, where you got the opportunity to speak with the minister and put forward representation. So very beneficial for the community and the city. I wouldn't say that it's can be tiresome. Worthwhile. Done properly for the networking process.
Can we just wait? Thanks, Councillor Whitten. Yeah, Councillor Duff. Yeah, I need to hang on.
There's a second part to this motion. Motions.
Councillor Duffy, there's a new system in Australia at the moment called Starlink, owned by SpaceX. It's very cheap. You might be well worth to get it.
It's
200 meg down and 100 meg up. Have to live on a farm.
Councillors, I'm just trying to contact Councillor Duffy by mobile phone.
It's a lot of bottles.
You just got to drink more then.
Just bear with me, councillors, please. Sorry, councillors, I'm not a very good time.
Did Morse code in my training time.
I don't want to I don't want to push the wrong spell check. You never know what could come up. I don't know what's going on.
Well, I can tell you that we've got 5 councillors.
Councillor Duffy did ask me to put
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll move the recommendation.
But we've got a second part to it, sir.
Second part.
If there were any motions that you wanted to put through, we would need those by tomorrow.
Closed, Mr.
Have we got
25th of March?
Did we have any motions?
We've got an indication we might have a window.
Okay,
get them in tomorrow.
Was there any motions from last year that carried on? Like that was in June. Not June. None? Was that that was the one not about television licensing requirements for regional New South Wales that we put up, or was that a different conference? That might have been a different conference. Yeah.
That was the LGSO.
The LGSO, okay. So we do have a window for motions?
We need you to agree on the topic now, and we could flesh it out in the morning. Be the gist of it.
I didn't really give much thought to it because I'd seen it was closed. I think one of the main things, through you, Mr. Mayor, would be to understand what if or any we've got any applications into,
For federal government funding.
and that may be something we do between now and June, right?
Yeah, well, certainly.
They're really the important things. Lobby for those.
We would certainly, Mr. Chair, prepare those going to the conference.
That'll be 1 month after the federal election.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Against? Carried. We'll move on to item 5.3, which is the New South Wales Australian Local Government Women's Association Conference. Oh, sorry, I've just got a text message through. Councillor Duffy said one of the motions should be continued recognition of local government.
In the Constitution, which is a constant motion. We will check, Mr. Chair, if someone might already have put that up. It's kind of a standing motion.
Yeah, it is a standing.
Note that tonight.
Yeah, it is a standing motion, yeah.
Report back.
If there's any more that come from Councillor Duffy, I'll just pass them on later on after the meeting. New South Wales Local Government Women's Association Conference.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
And ask for who's going.
I'd love to go. I've found out about how to run for council by attending one of Algua's.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't spoken to Councillor Greenhouse about this. So
I think she's interested. I'm pretty sure I spoke to her.
She's interested.
a while ago.
Councillor Kinghorn, are you in?
Not.
You're not.
Sorry, some of these things I just think they're box ticking exercises, and I'm sorry, I don't want to go.
Councillor Kinghorn.
We've got two, and of course, Councillor Greenhouse can always pull out in the morning. If
Yep. Okay, oh, well, that's Councillor McDonald and Councillor Greenhouse. I'll put that to the vote. All in favour, raise your hand. Against? Carried. I'll move on to item 5.4, which is Destination Visitor Economy Conference in 2022 to be held in Orange. So that won't cost us much.
Move the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Seconded by Councillor Power. And who would like to go? Don't all raise your hands at once.
I think it's the Mayor's
Mr
job.
Mayor, I think it'd be appropriate as Chair of the Economic Development Committee that I attend that.
Thanks, Councillor Miletto. I'm heading there anyway to do a opening something and something else. It's two of us.
To help out on the, I won't be working on the Tuesday, so I'm happy to help out if you need something done.
Thanks, Councillor Kinghorn. I won't be. I'm going as a. I've got to make a speech at the welcoming and then go to the dinner, but I'm not attending as a councillor. So if you'd like to attend as a councillor,
okay.
And Councillor Kinghorn could go on Tuesday and have a sit down and have a listen. It's in here, isn't it?
It's all around.
All around.
It's all around. So
Fantastic. Anyone on screen?
I'll see if I can get time off with the bosses, but
You're the boss, aren't you?
don't think so.
Four councillors, Councillor Evans, Councillor Miletto, Councillor Hamling, who's free because I think you're speaking, and Councillor Power.
Just a point of clarification.
Is Councillor Miletto?
Just for the benefit of all councillors, I'm assuming that each delegate is council going to be billed for each delegate of
They would be.
$980. So if you're intending on putting your hand up, you need to.
Attend all, the both days or the 3 days.
It's not a free event.
No. Working for accommodation. Staying home, wouldn't you?
Yes.
I'll have to get back to you and just make sure I can attend the 3 days. So
How about, as I said, I'm speaking, so it wouldn't. I'm not a. I don't have to pay. So how about we keep it at Councillor Power and Councillor Miletto at this stage, and then if we.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. It would be easier if you voted Councillor Evans and then he drops out, than the other way around. Then we'd have to revisit his attendance.
Councillor Kinghorn.
I don't want to go as a delegate, but I'm happy to help if you need something done.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kinghorn.
It might be easy if you keep him.
But we'll keep you in there, Councillor Evans. So there'll be Evans, Power, and Miletto.
Yep, and we'll give you a week or so, Councillor Evans, to make your mind up if that works.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll put the Oh, sorry.
Sorry, can I just ask a point of clarification? The scheduled council meeting on the 19th will still be happening. We don't need to reschedule that.
At this stage, we're going to keep it.
Okay.
With only 3 councillors, I think we'll keep it. Normally we would.
Okay, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, raise your hand. Against? Unanimous. I'll move on to item 5.5, which myself and Councillor Power will be declaring an interest, and Councillor Miletto will be taking over chair as Economic Development Chair. Thank you.
And myself, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, this is item 5.5, which is. Thank you. Yep, got you. Sorry, I got them. So.
Councillors, there is, we're looking at item 5.5, Tourism Services Contract, Orange 360, and the well as extension to the 31 December 2022. There is a recommendation on page 93.
Recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten, and seconded by Councillor Mallard. Is there any discussion on this item, councillors?
Only to say, Mr. Chairman, I think the organisation is adding enormous value to the economics to the city. I was at a government roundtable with telecommunications and so and the CEO gave a brief of what they've been doing, and many of the people who are aware or don't even come from our region are aware of Orange is well known for food excellence. So it's certainly working for the city.
Yeah, I'd like to just add a comment that I think this is a sensible recommendation. I think what we've seen with tourism numbers, how they've increased, I think last year they were about 1.3 million, something like that. Also with Orange 360 in general, there's been more accountability with regards to the reports and feedback which they're providing council to satisfy the ratepayers that they are doing an excellent job. And sometimes we as councillors get a lot of feedback that Orange is seen as only a food and wine capital. That's certainly not the case. I know that there is a lot of emphasis with regards to destination shopping and other economic opportunities. So I think under the circumstances, this is an excellent recommendation, and I fully support it. Are there any other councillors who'd like to make comment? Nobody on screen? There being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour, show of hands, please. Any against? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. That concludes item 5.5, and if we can call the other councillors back to the room.
I'll move on to item which is 5.6, which is the indoor playground.
I'd love to move this one, please.
Yeah, which option are you moving, Councillor McDonald?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I'd like to move.
Sorry, just ask Mr. Morne. There is only one recommendation. It's and, not or.
Yes,
there were,
okay, yes, that's what I
1,
was
2, and
looking
3.
at going,
yeah.
I'd like to move all recommendation.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to make an amendment, Mr. Mayor, please.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you. I'd like to make an amendment and remove point 2, so it's just secure a site for operation and council conduct an expression of interest. So that then aligns with option 2 as outlined in the report.
I'll second it for discussion. I'm assuming what you're saying is that you just want to move an amendment that only 2 is discussed. Is that my understanding?
No, 2 is removed from the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to move it for discussion.
Can I speak to the amendment, Mr. Mayor?
2 secs, Mr. Councillor Evans. Thank you.
Good to go.
Speaking for the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So look, overall, I think that the project is good and the need is definitely there, as we've discussed previously with the discussion you've had through the election campaign. However, when I look at this from a business perspective, I think there's a risk in the amount of council outlays and the problems with their employment in the region. If you talk to any or just about any business in the region at the minute, there's really a shortfall with labour. So there is a potential risk that we pay for the lot, we pay for the equipment, then we put our expression of interest out, and whoever's opted to run it could not or may not be able to operate it. So I've put the amendment forward so that we can look at it like a retail pod. So what we can do is still secure the site and say, okay, look, here's a commercial opportunity for someone. You come in, you foot it out or fit it out, and you start operating it. That alleviates then the risk of us forking out tens of thousands of dollars for the kit and the space and potentially not being able to operate it. So thank you.
A question through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Whitten.
So the amendment would mean that the COI, or the expression of interest, the EOI, would mean that the operator has to also supply the equipment.
Yes, that's correct. And I believe that there are some people in the community that may already have some or may be willing to buy some.
Any speakers against the amendment?
I think I'm going to speak against it. My concerns are this is just for a we're only trialling it for this winter. In terms of it, like it was a long term, perhaps I can understand the point, but sort of testing it and seeing whether this is possible. So I mean, maybe it's reworded slightly to rather than actually council equipment vague in the to allow for working with people who already
provides
equipment, renting it.
Councillor Milletto.
Thank you. I'm in two minds with this recommendation. I support the amendment because based on the fact that I don't think there is enough information in the material that I've been provided here to make an informed decision. I totally agree that we need an indoor playground. But my concerns are with regards to council facilitating or funding this in any way. When I look at it, I know it's only for 4 months, but if council were to go ahead with this over a 4-month period, most of the leases are taken out over 6 months. I don't know anybody who provides a lease over 4 months unless it was a particular arrangement with a certain business, but generally a lease is 6 months, not 4 months or 12 months. When I look at this, and I just done a couple of sums in my head, if we were to look at contributing $7,500 a week plus the rent of the building, which should be probably somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 on top of that, we're looking at $9,000 a week over 16 or 17 weeks. So it works out to be a bit over $150,000, probably $160,000 a year on the surface. If we look at that, we look at our next budget and we're looking at reducing footpaths, for argument's sake, from 900 to 600,000. The that we're looking at running this facility is equal to what we'd be spending on footpaths in the next financial year. I'm not saying we don't need this. I think there is a need for it. But are we gambling with ratepayers' money on something like this for it? If we look at the numbers, and if council can contribute $150,000 based on the figures which I've been given here, that's what it's thereabouts. So you would have to have, if you charged each person, and there's not enough detail in here to say whether council's going to, wear the full cost of it or whatever. But if you were to charge each participant $5, you'd have to expect 1,500 people to go through the doors, which is 250 a day, if it was to be financially viable or self-funded. So if that wasn't the case, well, then the money's got to come from somewhere over a 4-month period. So, the lease, and it doesn't say it or not, because there's not enough information here. So you've got to work out how long you're going to get the lease for, even though you might only operate it for 4 months, is a lease for 6 months. So then you've got 2 months of dormant lease on top of that. Also, I agree with the concept. I think it's a great idea. My concern is it a responsible spend of ratepayers' money over a 4-month period, or do we forgo this for this year and look at the big picture where my understanding is that there's potential investors, 2 or 3 people want to do it on a more permanent basis. Do we take a safe approach and let it take its course and moving into the future? Perhaps Mr. Maunder could enlighten the council on the interest moving forward, because what we're trying to do here, in my opinion, is we're trying to get a quick fix, because if you look at the dates, I think it is from the 1st of May or something like that for a 4-month period. Expecting anybody to get up and running during that period would be problematic, in my opinion. So I'm just wondering if we need to be more conservative and look at the big picture and say, okay, well, there are people interested in it, and perhaps we could, as Councillor Evans said, perhaps we could assist them in different ways rather than have this rush approach with a lack of information. Because I certainly, whilst I agree with the concept, I couldn't support it based on the information which I've been provided, knowing what the implications would be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I suppose it's a difficult one, because we know there's and certainly through the CSP process, we know there's desire from the community for the provision of an all-weather indoor play facility. We're also aware that there are commercial interests in Orange that are looking to establish a permanent fixture, and we're aware of a DA process that has just concluded that provides a pathway for that to occur. That will all take time. So given where we are in this year, if we want something up for this winter, it's unlikely that a commercial interest would do it for this winter. It's a matter for council then, if they want to decide that, given the community desire, that they step in and provide a service and meet the cost for that, similar to any number of services that we provide, certainly in my directorate, at a cost to the community and council. So that's a strategic matter for council. We are, and the negotiation and some of the discussions are ongoing, so it's difficult to talk about those in an open forum. There is some flexibility around a premises that would likely become available, not guaranteeing it, at a minimal cost for about how long we want it. So you could get it for 4 months for not much money.
Okay.
But you might not get it at all,
and that's
which would kind of kill it.
That's encouraging. So I'm assuming if council were to pursue that way,
yes,
would you're saying that it'd be a joint tenancy with a perspective? Because you'd be subletting it out to somebody else. So if that was the case, if council were to do a contract with, for argument's sake, if it was the ex-services club, declare a conflict of interest here. If you were to look at somebody like them, would you do a sublease on it? And if that was the case, who would wear the liability of the lease should somebody get injured there?
If council were to operate it?
No. If council were to...
Well, the operator would have to have their own insurances. That would be part of the requirement for the delivery of the program. There is a former operator that has some gear in containers in Orange that would be available for purchase. Again, costings of that might be less than what it might cost to lease, but that, again, it's a commercial conversation. Again, it's difficult to talk about in an open forum. Or you just hire the equipment for the period of time which is available. And again, how many items do you hire will have a direct relationship to the cost of what you're proposing. The major cost for this, though, is staff. If you run that centre from 9 till 4, you need 2 staff. It's 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's $4,500 in staff costs. They might be able to, similarly how we do at the Aquatic Centre, where some staff do the admittance and also run a cafe. You would seek to double up your staff in that. The other major costs are obviously utilities, cleaning, security. They're your major inputs. So you get to about $7,500, 7-day-a-week operation. If you ran it for 5 days, that cost is less. And so a couple of those decisions would be from council and direction from council as to what sort of service you're looking at providing. And they'll have a direct relationship with cost. So if you only run it 5 days, you lose whatever that worked out to be, 20% of the cost in salary. So you save, you save $1,000 a week, $1,500 a week in salary. It doesn't cost $4,500, it costs $3,000. But you know what I mean? Like it depends. Then you forego the opportunity for income, and I'd anticipate we would charge for this, which would, if you did $5 a head and you had 500 people through, it allays some of the cost. But it's unlikely that you'll cover it. So it is difficult because it is there's so many variables to give you with, And I don't know the answers to the variables because some of it depends on the model.
And I don't either. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know the answers either because I'm trying to provide a response based on something I don't know because I'm not sure which way we're going to go with the recommendation. So
I think if we were able to secure a premises, we would have flexibility around the period of time, so we wouldn't have to pay for 6 months if we wanted it for 4. Indications are that wouldn't be expensive.
Chair, can I say something? Ms. Maunder, it occurs to me we haven't quite said that we would bring this back to council once we've conducted a process.
But it could.
At our intention?
Can be.
Yes, okay. That may allay some of your concerns once we report back.
It'd probably be a month, councillor, because the run expression of interest process would take 2 weeks and then a month. Close.
Could I just talk about this? So the intention of this was to, I know there's some providers that have come out of the woodwork since we've brought this up. Councillor Kinghorn's been contacted me about one of them, which is looking at that site where we did the DA before.
Correct.
This is not a competition. This is not to go into competition with someone who opens up one. This is just a measure for this winter. Now, I understand Councillor Miletto's concerns. I get that. But as part of being a community, our money goes to things that we all don't use. So there is a definite need for some sort of indoor play centre. There would be a revenue stream coming in from people using the facility. I would like to think that if this got up, that we would be able to help in some way whoever is start up their new venture. I don't know how we could do that, but helping them. So then once that venture started up, we would then cease to operate the one we're talking about now. That's all this has got. This is all this is about. It was pretty clear to me during the election, and I don't know about other candidates and other councillors, that there were families out there that were doing it tough in winter. We needed something. Now, if we have to step in for 4 to 6 months or 4 months, 5 months to provide that, I'm pretty comfortable with that service that we may be able to provide. And I get there's not a lot of information here yet, and operational information, but hopefully that will come to us once we get that expression of interest out.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, part of the difficulty, we could put it to market and not get any interest.
Exactly.
And then council would have to make the next decision about operational. So that is an option. That is a possibility.
Yep. Councillor Power.
Yes, thank you.
Are you speaking for or against the amendment?
Yeah, that was my question. Because I just wanted to have a broad, because there is an amendment on here.
Right. So Councillor Miletto was speaking for, so you'll be speaking against the amendment. Okay. Thank you.
I'll be truthful. I'm very passionate about this. What we've heard and what I've heard, even 12 months prior to the election, was that what we needed from the families and the children of this community. And when you look at the data in relation to what the census states, what our growth is in Orange, it's children, it's young people, it's early childhood services, it's all these amazing people. But then the other need of that, that was reflecting, there was only one opportunity to actually have a small centre of this here, and that was a centre in Prince Street that was very small, without mentioning anything, and it was just not the right venue, unfortunate. And I suppose that's the platform that I stood upon in relation to running for council, and I'll echo it again, I'm very passionate about this. What model or what the defining thing, and I really understand where Councillor Evans is coming from a business sense. I'm a business person myself. At the end of the day, I want to echo what Mr. Mayor will reckon too. Let's make a way and let's think outside the box to get the job done, because I think our community deserves this. I think our community wants this, and it's up to us to sit in the chamber, just thrash it out, see how it works. But at least, and I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, this is about a pilot program to put something on the ground for this winter. And I think the time frame that Scott Munro, director, has actually put up.
Maunda.
I said that today too, they got roused on. My bad.
Seem like
Scott Maunda. It's Scott Maunda, sorry.
Coming.
Yeah. And it's something that I think we should proceed down, and that's why I will not vote on the amendment. Thank you.
Any other speakers? You speaking for the amendment, Councillor Kinghorn?
I've just got some comments. Am I allowed to just do that?
Yeah. You can do some comments, sure.
So we just have to be careful here, because we have the potential to have something that's actually amazing for Orange as a permanent structure, including, so this place would have climbing walls, lots of virtual reality, so covering the needs of younger kids and older kids as well. So the plan for this, for one of the options that's been proposed is it's pretty impressive.
This is for the private.
This is for the private one. So we have to be careful not to undermine that. And I've already spoken with the Mayor about this, and he's agreed that if we did go ahead with something like this, it should be very flexible with the time so that we could stop as soon as the other one was ready to roll. And the other advantage of having this, or one of the commercial ones, is that it can be cost-free to council, which matters as well, because we do want to save money too. It would just depend on how quickly she could get this up and running, and her understanding from what's happening now that the DA over at the Old Bunnings site's been approved is that it could be at the end of July. That would depend on how quickly she could get her DA through council, and I know that you can have special favours for people, but if the process could be facilitated at all, that would be very helpful for her. If we were to do something that was likely to be done in opposition competition to that, then she wouldn't go ahead. There's been another person as well who's proposed doing something in Orange, and she would require some council funding because she doesn't want to pay any more rent than $100 a square metre, which is not easily obtainable commercially. I think this is the person that we may have been talking to about renting the equipment, and I'm not sure how agreeable she would be to do it for a short time if she wasn't chosen to be helped out with the commercial one. So we have to be really careful here because we risk sacrificing something for something that could be a major coup for Orange for the sake of something that's a couple of months. So we just need to be careful how we do this. I'm wondering, and I know we want to get this up and running fairly quickly, but I'm just wondering whether we should put it on hold for a couple of weeks and just speak to the people who are proposing the commercial ones and finding out exactly what they want.
There will by the time, if we put this out for expression of interest, it's going to take 2 to 4 weeks to come back to council anyway. So in that time we could talk to her. The lady you're talking about, the second lady you're talking about, might put an expression of interest in. I don't know. I'm guessing, but there will be a period where, like, this is not going to be built tomorrow. So there will be that item number 3. Expression of interest.
The other expression of interest might be the other person, though, and that may not be she may not want to do it temporarily. She may want to do it permanently, and we might decide that the other one's a better option for Orange.
Yeah, okay.
So it's I know it's a bit tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. But Councillor Mallard, for the motion or against?
I'm speaking.
For the amendment.
Against the amendment.
Yep.
I do appreciate where Councillor Evans was coming from in moving it, but I think for me, we're talking, as Councillor Power said, this is effectively a pilot. Where we're doing something with the intention of it being temporary. I think the most efficient way for us to get it up and running for me is the key thing. That's what staff have recommended as the most efficient way, is that we handle the equipment side. We see if someone's interested in operating it. A lot of the other stuff, we're dealing with hypotheticals and unknowns, whether they're going to materialise. I hope they do. It would be great. We've clearly acknowledged the need for the facility. We have an opportunity to get it in place for the start of winter or as close to it as we can get. So I think we should get on with that and do the best contingency planning we can, that if something else comes up going to fill the community, wind it up. And certainly I hope it's only for this one winter that we're having to go through sorting this out. It'd be great if another private option materialises. But yeah, I think for that reason, I think it'll be great if we can get on with it, get the EOIs in, and as part of that, presumably be working out what equipment, likely looking at hiring, so they can start operating it, and that comes back to us as soon as possible. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Any other speakers?
Yeah, Councillor, could I just, Mr Mayor, could I just speak against the proposal, even though I basically do agree with a lot of the things that Councillor Evans had said, but I'd just like to ask, is there any way we can perhaps offset some of the fees in that by perhaps advertising, like selling advertising space and stuff like that in an area like this, to try and maybe get some sort of remuneration back while the project is up and going?
I'd have to discuss that with the owner of the premises, whether they'd be prepared to do that. I haven't got an answer for that, but certainly those opportunities are available. So there's any number of things you can do to value add to the facility. So you sell coffee for $5 a cup, you do a few of those, you know that works in Orange. So there's other opportunities for augmentation, and that might be what's appealing to a business operator. The person that is considering operating out at the old Bunnings site, they might cut their teeth on operating this for a few months whilst DA is going through and they're securing their equipment, they're doing their fit out for their other site. I don't know those answers, but that's the value of testing it through an EOI. If we hire the equipment or secure it in another means, they can walk in, walk out. And as Mayor said, I think the intent is that if a commercial operation was up and running and we just cease this operation. So that's the idea, because we want a sustainable, long-term tourism attractor facility that's available for the community and attracts people and meets the need, and kids to teenagers is the market that people are looking for activities, not just in winter.
Mr. Councillor Whitten.
I suppose the comment I'd like to make is that what I'm hearing in this chamber tonight is not in the motion. So we're talking about what our intent might be. I read the motion. I know we're dealing with the amendment at the moment, so I might let you put the amendment first, and then I'll talk about it if it becomes a motion.
Put the amendment first. All those in favour, raise your hand. 3. Against? So the amendment is lost. I'll speaking for the recommendation.
For the recommendation, but clarifying some. The recommendation in the 4 points.
3.
So it's about putting in there. We're going to go to EOI. During those discussions, the staff need more from us about what they want to go, what those EOI discussions need to entail, right? Because we are going to approve a motion that let's go ahead with this and do ABC. But in discussion with the other organisations that may be going to be commercial, they may fit into the EOI discussions. Is that a comment? Because I know that if you were to, I definitely don't want to put in a facility that's going to compete with commercial operations. And I think it's understood here, but it's not written, that this is only to facilitate a certain period of time, and then when a commercial operation comes along, we will withdraw. Fair comment? Not in the motion. So what I'm saying is the condition should be giving the staff, Mr. Maunder and his team, an outline of what they can negotiate.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we could add that as point 4 to the recommendation that should a commercial operation commence, that this would cease.
Or model.
That's right. Well, that's what I think. That's what those 3
longer than the period than for.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's where council could cap it by, if there is a commercial operation, then this venture ceases. It would be difficult to go. Would be difficult to go to an EOI process and have someone submit to operate it for a 4-month period, and then we pull the pin at 3 months. Because then you'd breach your agreement. So if you set the 4 months, and that's the risk in this model if the other one's up and running in 3. But
there is a definite need for it. Like it's a.
I don't know that business, so I can't comment on whether 3's optimistic or realistic.
Well, if it's, we've got to have something set in stone, do we? 3, like Orange winter goes more than 3 months.
So, and that's what I proposed for.
And
Councillor Mallard. Councillor McDonald.
There is a chance that the other ones don't necessarily get up this year too. So, I mean, we can't just assume much as got this as an option. I think we need to.
Okay. Any other speakers for the recommendation for or against? I'll put the motion. All in favour, raise your hand. Yeah, it's unanimous. Councillor Kinghorn.
Councillor Sorry. Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5.7, which is reduction in fees for the Scout Camp.
Happy to move it.
Thanks, Councillor Meadow. Seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Raise your hands in favour. Against? Unanimous. Left me glasses in the mirror.
Okay. You're now moving into closed meeting.
The Chief Executive Officer will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of Orange City Council.
Mr Mayor, there have been no such submissions.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind as referred in section 10A bracketed 2 of the Act and should be dealt with a confidential session of council meeting closed to the press and public. Item 6.1 is submissions reductions. This item is classified confidential under the provisions of the section 10A bracketed 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to information that would be disclosed, prejudice of the maintenance of law. Item 6.2, which is the Health Infrastructure Agreement. This item is classified confidential under provision of section 10A bracketed 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed for the public or business relating to C, information that would be, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business, and G, advice concerning litigation or advice that would otherwise be privileged from production in legal proceedings on the ground of legal professional privilege.